Deadly Illusions hooked me right away. You've got Kristen Davis being a writer, making out with the hot nanny, and I was intrigued. But then the twist got boring. That's it. That's my intro. Hi, I'm Amanda, you're watching Swell Entertainment, and I really wanted to like Deadly Illusions, okay? I really wanted to. The trailer was interesting. I was intrigued, okay? The movie, for the most part, is entertaining. It's enjoyable. But when your ending sucks, your movie is a waste of my time. Deadly Illusions is a Netflix movie that came out, God, not even like a week ago now. I have no idea. But it stars Kristen Davis. Kristen Davis, who has been featured on this channel before as the host of the greatest reality show of all time, Labor of Love. I was intrigued. I was looking forward to watching this movie. Deadly Illusions follows Kristen Davis as Mary, who is a writer who hasn't written anything in a while. She's been busy being a mom and taking care of her twins and just being a housewife. She has a meeting with her publisher. She thinks that they are coming to talk with her about doing a spin-off series with a ghostwriter so that the publishing house can still make money. But instead what they offer her is making another installment in the series. And she is just not happy about this whatsoever. It's a little confusing why she's so upset. She's just like, you lied to me, that you misled me. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And she seems to have no enjoyment or even inclination to want to write another book in her series. Even her publisher's assistant is like making very weird comments to her. And like personally, if I was a best-selling author and allegedly seemed to be making as much money as Mary was in this, I would literally not let this woman speak to me this way. Because the assistant is just like, there was a time when no one would read what you wrote and you turned to writing salacious gossip or stories or whatever. And now you live in this big, beautiful house and you don't have to worry about anything. Like, what? Excuse me? Who are you? God, it was just weird. Her husband finds the pitch and sees that they were willing to advance her $2 million to write the next book, which supposedly is larger than any of her other book advancements combined, which I think is more than anyone has ever been paid in advance for a book, but that's just my understanding of the publishing world. And she's like, oh, I wasn't trying to hide this from you. I didn't even open the envelope. I didn't even read the pitch. I just kicked them out of the house. Not until Mary's husband tells her that he made some bad bets in the stock market and lost half of their reserves, as in half of their money, on a bad bet that he made 6 months ago and didn't tell her about. So she has to take this book deal because they're screwed otherwise. Way to pick them. So Mary goes and talks to her friend Elaine, and Elaine is like, just write the book, you know? Do this. This will set you guys up for the rest of your life. You can write literally whatever you want. You can work on whatever you want after you do this book deal. Just do it and be done with it. Encourages her to go through a nanny agency to get a nanny and a sitter for her kids so that she has more time to write because she just can't do both at the same time with the way that she works. She says, I become a different person when I'm writing. You've never seen me writing. So it's set up early on that Mary has kind of like a weird headspace she gets into when she's working on a book. Mary goes to the agency and they agree to start sending some of these nannies by her house. And so she starts interviewing these nannies. She doesn't like any of them. She just seems to find fault in all of these nannies for some reason. And then it's not until Grace shows up on her bike that she seems intrigued because she reads, I guess. Obviously, I'm going to be spoiling this movie, but I'm going to be criticizing the twist early on, so be warned. Grace and Mary hit it off. Grace is like this young 20-something blonde. She's like kind of meek and really sweet. The kids come in at one point when Mary's on a phone call and Grace is like, takes charge of like their drawing and like tells a story that makes no sense when you look at the drawing. I'm sorry, it was weird. But Mary adores Grace right off the bat and is like, you know what, I could use some help next week because I'm working on a new book if you want to come try out something part-time. So it starts there and Grace starts becoming the nanny at least part-time. And okay, here's where my first criticisms come in for this movie. It's kind of painted as Grace is this young temptress, okay? And Mary starts kind of getting mixed signals and vibes from Grace that like she's secretly trying to seduce her. And Mary tells Elaine this, like, I don't know what's going on. Like I've never had feelings for a woman before. And it's weird. It's like she's this meek little thing one second and then the next minute she's this temptress, just holding me on a string, waiting for me to bite back. And I totally disagree. Mary and Grace's dynamic is weird from the jump, okay? Yes, Grace is taking care of the kids, but Grace comes over before the kids even get off from school and starts like taking care of the house, cleaning, all this stuff, and starts taking care of Mary essentially while she's writing. Like she's bringing her tea and stuff, just doing like very nice things for her, okay, right off the bat. That's not that big of a deal. I don't think that's her like being a temptress. It's clearly just like, I need something to do with my life and you guys are nice to me. Like that's what it seems like, okay? But if anyone is giving anyone's mixed signals, it's Mary giving Grace mixed signals. They're both adults, okay? But at the end of the day, there is still a power dynamic difference because Mary is the boss and Grace is the employed. So let's go from there. If it was me and I was Grace in this situation, okay? Now, I'm horrible at reading signals. I cannot tell when someone is hitting on me. I cannot tell when I'm being flirted with. I am so dense when it comes to people flirting with me. You're gonna have to wear a sign if you want me to understand what's going on. Okay, that being said, if my hot employer, okay, had me come over to work on her house and spend time with her when her kids weren't around, and then also took me bra shopping and went into the dressing room with me and helped me put on bras, and also had me rub lotion on her back while she was sunbathing topless, and then stripped down and invited me to go swimming with her while she was naked. I'm gonna assume she wants to bone. That's just gonna be my assumption. And I don't think that's like a mixed signal. I think that's a billboard. Let me explain the twist, because here's where my criticisms come with the twist of the story. Throughout the movie, we are being shown that Mary is kind of having a certain memory loss, or she's having visions or daydreams or nightmares, and she's not quite sure what's real and what's not. For example, there's a moment where she feels like she wakes up from a nap and she thinks her husband's like playing with her titties, and then she blinks and it's Grace, and then she wakes up, okay, and then she confronts Grace and she's like, what happened can't happen again. And Grace doesn't seem to remember, like, what are you talking about? There's another instance where Mary is taking a bath and Grace comes in and is like, I've been waiting for this moment, and like basically fingers her in the bathtub. Okay, you don't see anything. You don't even see titties in this movie, so keep that in mind. And then she hears the door closing and she like wakes up. So again, we're kind of being shown that we're not really sure, at least even as the audience, what's real and what's a dream for Mary. You're shown certain things where her interactions with Grace are clearly either happening or they're like dreams that Mary is having. And then there is certain instances where it's very clear Grace is like coming out to her. Like when they're in the changing room trying on bras, Mary is talking about like, oh, I remember my boobs used to look like that. And Grace takes her hand and puts it on her titty and is like, so you can remember what it felt like to like have boobs like this or whatever. And it's a very clear like, hi. There's another instance where they go on like a picnic date, and this is a date. If I was Grace, I would assume that my employer is trying to at least, very least make out with me, okay? Because they go on like a bike ride to like this side of like a wooded area and they're reading together, and Grace is like clearly like rubbing on Mary's leg, and then they kiss. And it's like, okay, we can't do this again. Like, I love my husband, whatever. Okay. But they're actually kissing. This is real. This is happening. Okay. And then they go back home, and then there's a whole nother day that happens, and they're in the kitchen. Mary is like helping Grace with dinner or whatever, and Grace like starts going down on her like, you deserve this. Like, it's clearly happening. This is real, okay? Because her husband comes in with the kids, and then it's like, oh, nope, can't do that here. Kind of already shown that like we and Mary don't fully know what's real and what's not, okay? That same night as Grace going down on Mary in the kitchen, Mary's like, I don't feel so good. I think I'm gonna go lay down, and goes to lay down. Her husband brings her water. She lays down, and then at some point she wakes up because she hears sex noises, goes into the kitchen, and it seems to be like Grace acting like a completely different person, and her husband who's blindfolded, and they're doing some type of like baby boy BDSM type of thing going on, happening. It's like, yeah, you're a good boy, whatever. Mary passes out watching this. She hears Grace say, don't worry, she won't remember any of this. And then Mary comes to again, and she goes into the kitchen. They still haven't had dinner yet. So this is like, we're kind of not sure, did this actually happen or is this a dream? And she confronts them at the dinner table, even though personally I don't think there was any time for Grace to have fixed her hair and changed and just done, the kids were home. Like logically, there's no way this could have happened, okay? But she's like, you were fucking my husband there. This was so real. I felt it so real. It's like, no, this was a dream. This wasn't real. And again, we are not shown what's real and what's not. So Mary confronts her husband that night and is like, no, you know, I'm sorry, but that dream that I have, that's how I feel. I feel like I've just been in the back seat and you've been taking control of everything. I've done everything to take care of the kids and you fucked me. You ruined our finances. And so I'm the one that has to fix it by writing this book. And I hate how I get when I'm writing and all this stuff. So now she believes that this dream was actually a dream. And like, this is just like her manifestation of it. Like, this is just how I actually feel. So at some point throughout the movie, Elaine, Mary's friend, after they have like a dinner together or something, there seems to be just immediately some distance between Mary and Elaine. And it's kind of hard to tell what happens when. It's after Mary tells Elaine that she feels like she's at least starting to be seduced by Grace, or at least she has feelings for this woman or whatever. And then after they do a business dinner together or something, and she's talking about the book with Elaine's husband and all of that. But Elaine seems to start having like weird vibes with the husband and then Mary, essentially. And then after they go to the picnic date that Grace and Mary go on, Elaine is there talking with Tom, Mary's husband. They're like, hey, we called you. Someone hurt, like someone broke the bike, like because someone slashed the tires on the bike. It's a whole thing. Hang on. And Elaine tells Mary, when's the last time you and Tom had sex? And she's like, I don't know, since before I started working on the book. And like, we are shown that they have a very healthy sex life prior to her working on this book. And Elaine tells Mary, well, you know what they say, if he's not getting it from you, he's getting it from somewhere. And she's like, what are you talking about? Are you trying to like hit on my husband? First you criticized Grace and now you're talking about my relationship with my husband. No, stay away from me, get away from me. And that part was confusing because unless I missed something, I don't think Elaine ever criticized Grace. If anything, she was like, you have feelings for a woman, like it's not a big deal. Just like use her as your muse. Like if anything, she encourages her to use Grace as her muse for her book. Like use her for your writing. She never criticizes Grace in my view, unless I missed something. The memory loss starts to get a little worse for Mary, like she's losing time. So before I talk about the ending of this movie and my criticisms for it, it's gonna get more jumbled than I've already made it because I'm gonna ruin the twist for you right now. Basically, the big reveal is that Grace was a child, and we've kind of been given hints that she came from a big family, but she doesn't really have anyone left in her life and all of that. When Grace was little, she was one of the oldest of something like 8 children, and her parents locked them up and kept them locked up. And then after they were freed from being their parents, starving them, and their parents went to jail, Grace went to go live with her aunt. While Grace was locked up, she would play a game with one of her brothers, essentially, where she played Margaret. And Margaret becomes a split personality of Grace's. And Margaret is the one who kind of helped Grace get through this horrible time. She was the one who dealt with the horrible experiences that Grace went through while they were locked up and got them through life. That's what this is that Grace has a split personality, Margaret. And Margaret is the one who is the more sexual one and the more aggressive one of the two. And I went and watched this movie again to see if I could really see what was Grace and what was Margaret. And clearly it's Margaret when she's talking with Tom. Especially there's one point where Tom is like, you know, after I drop the kids off, like, let's go and get food because, you know, I want to take the day off and I could use the company. And again, a little weird. If I was Grace, I'd be getting mixed signals from Tom as well. And this clearly, and even Tom comments like, you're different right now. Like you're more adult. Like I would think you were 40, not in your 20s, you know? And clearly Grace is like flirting with him, being more aggressive sexually. And so it's kind of clear there that that's Margaret talking with Tom and that she's trying to seduce Tom. However, Elaine is murdered with a pair of scissors. Mary is framed for the murder because scissors, it's the murder weapon in her book, which she just finished the first draft of in the movie. And we are shown a point where Mary gets up and she like smokes her cigar and she goes into her writing room because the lights are on and she picks up her manuscript and she leaves. And then the next day she goes to go visit Elaine because I've been calling you haven't been answering. And Elaine is in her desk and she's been murdered with the scissors. Mary calls the police and the police are like, it's like an open and shut case. And they basically believe that Mary is the one who killed Elaine. Since Elaine was killed with scissors and Mary's DNA is on the scissors because it's her scissors, they think that it was Mary. They even have footage of a person going into Elaine's office and leaving Elaine's office that they believe to be Mary because she's wearing Mary's coat, okay? And we are shown Mary in this coat. It's like a khaki trench coat the entire time. She's like, that could be anybody because she's wearing a headscarf and sunglasses. Tom comes and is like, don't say anything else. We're getting you a lawyer. She's like, I don't know why I'm the suspect. I don't know why they think I did it. And Tom said, where did you go last night? She was like, I got up, I smoked a cigar, and I went into my writer's room, and then I went back to bed. He was like, you were gone for 3 hours. You were gone. And apparently in Elaine's office, there was notes about memory loss, time being lost, and then also Mary's name with like 10 a.m. circled, okay? And she's like, yeah, that's when I meet her at the gym. 10 a.m. is when I always meet her at the gym. That's why. I don't know why she was writing about memory loss and me. I haven't been to her office for a session in years. Mary starts putting more and more together where she's like, I need to find out more about this. And so she decides to go to the small town that Grace grew up in with the contact that she had and ask about Grace. And that's how she hears about Grace's family and her experiences. And while she's there, the aunt is exhibiting at least some type of split personality, I would say. At least that's what we're led to believe because she's talking to herself and then a more masculine voice is responding to her. The aunt tells Mary that Grace got a job at one of those fancy sports clubs, basically what Elaine and Mary had been at, discussing the nanny and all of that. We are being shown this as Mary is kind of thinking it through, so we have no idea if this is really what happened or if this is Mary just kind of filling in the blanks for herself, but we are shown Grace working in the gym that Elaine and Mary are at, and she takes a photo of the nanny card that Elaine had given Mary. And then Grace goes to the nanny agency and applies and is turned down, but she like takes a photo of Mary's information and all of that. There's two different versions of what we are shown when she is turned down for the position. One is Grace being very aggressive, like, I am more qualified than half of these girls here. Is it because I didn't go to the proper schools? Like, calls the employer a bitch. And then it like rewinds because again, we're showing this from Mary's perspective. And Grace is like, okay, if there's any help you could use around the office. And then she leaves. And then Mary calls Tom and is like, okay, if Grace comes, do not let her in the house. I have reason to believe she's dangerous. But we really don't know if she's dangerous because a minute ago, Mary was also convinced that maybe she was the one who stabbed the bike and, took the scissors and took the manuscript and did all this stuff. And now she's like rewriting it in her head that no, it was Grace. Grace is the one who like cut my bike tires, so I had to walk with her. Grace is the one who took the scissors. Grace is the one doing all of this stuff. The memory gaps are never explained. That was a big criticism I have because at first I was like, okay, Grace must be drugging her because she's constantly giving her tea, giving her drinks, all this stuff. Grace obviously knows about the memory gaps because she's like, oh yeah, she's not going to remember this. And I'm assuming that dream or that nightmare that she had of Grace and Tom doing it on the counter in the kitchen was something that she had watched earlier and then she was just remembering it in the dream. It's just never really explained why Mary is having these memory gaps. And it's never discussed like, last time you were working on your novel, you forgot about time, like the memory gaps. Like it's never discussed like that. So it's not like this is a thing that happens when she writes, just like I become a different person when I write. Sometimes I don't know what's real and what's not. And it's like, okay, but what about the memory gaps? It's one thing to confuse fiction with reality. It's another thing to be losing time and losing chunks of your memory. That's just never really explained. But she goes back to the house, and as she's on her way to the house, Grace comes into the shower with Tom and is like, no, we're going to play again. We're going to have sex again. And she's holding a knife and she's in like this lingerie getup and a coat. And she's in what looks to be the same coat that the person who went on the security footage is wearing when they went to Elaine's office. And Tom is like, no, I don't want to play those games with you anymore. I'm not going to do this. I love my wife, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, no, what are you going to understand? I always get what I want. Starts stabbing Tom, okay? And so Tom is like bleeding out. So Mary comes in. Grace is there. She's in a dress now. She's like acting like Grace. She's like, no, I'm sorry. There's a mess in there. You can't go in the bathroom. Where are the kids? The kids are in the game room. And Tom is in the shower, but there's a mess in there. Don't go in there. Like, is Grace actually like, don't know there's a mess in there. Like, please don't go in there. Or is this Margaret kind of being like, no, let him bleed out. Like, it's fine. There's a mess in there. Mary goes into the bathroom. Tom is there bleeding out. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? And he's apologizing. She seduced me. I'm sorry. She seduced me. I love you. It won't happen again. I'm sorry. Grace comes in and is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about the mess. And she's cleaning up the blood. And Mary is like, Grace, you need to call 911. So she calls 911. And Mary is like, Grace, who did this? And she's like, I'm sorry, I tried to stop her. And that's where the reveal of Margaret comes in. Me. She tried to stop me. And they kept doing this weird voice modulator thingy on Grace when she was Margaret. And it's like, if you have a good actor, I don't think you need to do that personally, because it was just like weird. Like, she's like this actual demon monster doing this. And it kept changing, like when they were using the voice modulation and when they weren't. I don't want to criticize the acting overall, because I do think everyone in this movie did a fairly good job. I just think this one sequence was so poorly planned out that it didn't matter how good of an actor the person playing Grace was. They were screwed, because this was very confusingly written in a really, I'm sorry, I think the reveal was lazy. I think they could have done something so much better. The split personality thing, I think, was like a cheap cop-out, and they really didn't know how to handle it because it was kind of all over the place. Grace is like, I can't stop her, you need to run. And so Mary runs out, Margaret is chasing him, they start fighting, they have the knife, all that stuff. There's a fighting, there's a chunk of hair and like a chunk of her scalp that gets ripped out by a blender. As Mary is like on the ground and Margaret is approaching her, Margaret and Grace are going back and forth. And again, the voice modulation is making it almost funny to watch. I'm sorry, it was just weird. Margaret is like, so this is the bitch that she wanted to replace me with? I'm the one who took care of us. I'm the one who got us through life. And you think that you can replace me because of what? Love? She thought she got rid of me because of love. And it's like, okay, wait, who was what and who was who now? The entire time, because now I'm confused. Basically, the reveal is Grace really was in love with Mary, and Margaret got angry, and then that's why all this is happening now, because Mary tried to take Grace away from Margaret, and that's why Mary has to die. Okay. Mary finishes the book, and then she like goes and visits Elaine's grave. Thank you, I just needed to kick out the door. She drops her kids off at the nanny agency, goes to the hospital and visits Grace in the hospital. And Grace seems to be infinitely more immature at this point. She's like, Mary! And it's like, what are we gonna play today? Crazy Eights, and they're playing a game, and she just seems much more kid-like at this stage. And then the movie ends with someone walking out of the hospital in the trench coat, in the sunglasses, with the headscarf wrapped around her. Okay, this ending was lazy, and I'll tell you why. Because there was a lot that could have worked, and there were instances that they were trying to make it seem, and they could have seemed, like Mary was the one who was the killer the whole time. Mary was the one who killed Elaine and all this stuff. And there is a point when Mary is going through like a brainstorming session with her publisher and the assistant, and they're like, you know, what do you think about the mother being the killer? She's like, you want our protagonist to be the killer? Yeah, it'd be like a good twist. It's a vibe of what's going on right now. And so there's certain indications that Mary is the one doing it. And Mary even has a sequence we are shown where she sees how she was the one who slashed the tires. And then she is the one who had the scissors, and she left them there or whatever. But then again, we are shown her like basically rewriting that so that it's Grace doing all of that, or Margaret, I guess. I don't know if that was what they were trying to make it, like it was open-ended of who actually killed Elaine. Was it actually Mary? And Grace and Margaret being Grace and Margaret was just a second thing that was happening, because it could have been that. But it would just seemed weird, like it's never really fully explained on whether or not Grace is the one who killed Elaine. We really don't fully know who killed Elaine. And as far as we are told, the only DNA that is on the scissors is Mary's. And then Tom is like, there are scissors. The kids' DNAs are on it. My DNA is on it. Like it's ridiculous that they think you're the only suspect. We're never really shown specifically who killed Elaine. Like it very easily could have been Mary who killed Elaine. However, the thing with Grace's / Margaret's motivations are very confusing. We are only shown what Mary thinks happened, okay? So we are treating that as what actually happened. We are shown essentially Grace plotting to be able to work with Mary, okay, and watch Mary's kids. And because of how the Margaret reveal plays out, I'm going to assume that Grace is the one who wanted to go work with Mary, okay? And that was entirely Grace wanting to go work with Mary and plotting to go work with Mary. And considering we are shown that the check gets sent to the nanny agency and it's never actually given to Grace, let's assume that it's not for money. So Grace, let's say, had a crush on Mary, or actually wanted to work with Mary, or wanted to read her books or work with her as a writer or whatever, because she is shown reading. Like, it's very calculated how she presents herself to Mary. And then she seems to actually develop feelings for Mary, okay? But she is still meek and still awkward. So at the very least, she wanted family, wanted love, because she's like, I've never felt more loved, I've never felt more at home than when I'm with you. And then Mary is the one who seemingly pushes it over the edge to make it sexual, I guess. But then the motivations become confusing, because there are instances between Mary and Grace where it is clearly Margaret running the shots, okay? Because Grace just doesn't have that capability of being forward with Mary, at least what we are shown. Grace is more demure, she's more, demure is not the word, meek. Prudish is the word that was used at one point in the movie. Just awkward, shy, just kind of like kitty love, okay? Like, she just has a crush on her boss, that's it. So I'm not really understanding the point of why the ruse was necessary. Like, yes, I really wanted to work with you, or I had a crush on you, so I'm going to go through all these steps so that I can work in your house and get to know you better, and you can get to know me better because you just seem so sweet and wonderful. Like, okay, there's that. But then where the Margaret stuff comes in is a little confusing. Certain things with the memories that Mary may or may not actually be having, probably Margaret, because they're just a little too aggressive for Grace, okay? But Grace definitely seems to fall for Mary, at least in the degree of why Margaret gets so aggressive and starts turning against Grace, because you want to kick me out because you love Mary. You think Mary loves you. This is getting a little weird, because on one hand, it does seem like Grace's feelings towards Mary are just feelings of like familial love. Like, there's definite family mommy issues in there. She's like, I've never felt more at home with you and all that stuff. And then the more aggressive sexual emotions with them are definitely Margaret. So it's kind of a little brings into question Mary's involvement, and like definitely throwing mixed signals out there. And they're not even mixed signals, it's a billboard. I kind of want to fuck my nanny. That's what the billboard says. So it would make sense why, if Grace is genuinely falling for Mary, whether it's like, I want to have a mother figure in my life, or I just want a friend and I'm also falling in love with her, like there's that, okay. It would make sense why Margaret is like, okay, fine, fuck you. You're not gonna take Grace from me, so I'm going to seduce your husband. So that's where Margaret, makes the passes at Tom and starts having sex with Tom. That would make more sense, because I'm going to ruin your chances with Mary, because she'll never want to be with you if you sleep with her husband. Like, that would make sense why Margaret would like self-sabotage Grace so that Margaret can have Grace and there's no replacing. So I'm assuming then that Grace at least had some type of control over Margaret, because she was able to do most of this ruse. And like, why was Margaret even into this ruse to begin with? Like, okay, cool, we have a new job now. We're basically shown that Grace has difficulties controlling Margaret, and when Margaret is in control. And so it would make sense that that was the case the entire time, because then Margaret is like, she thought she could get rid of me, and Grace is like, I did get rid of you. She loves me, I love her, I did get rid of you, because her feelings for Mary were so strong that Margaret was like not an issue anymore. Grace was in full control. But then obviously Margaret was probably the one hitting on Tom the entire time, and probably the one doing all this. And then again, the memory loss thing is a whole other thing, but then Grace isn't the one experiencing the memory loss. That's Mary. And I know I'm getting all over the place, but I've thought about this plot way too much. That's always what ends up happening with these videos, is I overthink what we are shown. Because again, I don't know who killed Elaine. I think it was Mary. I think Mary killed Elaine. I don't think it was Margaret, and I don't think it was Grace, because there's really no reason for them to have killed Elaine. Elaine may have seen Tom with Margaret. It wouldn't make sense for her to kill Elaine, because Elaine was like against Grace. If Margaret's goal was to get Grace away from Mary, or to keep Mary away from Grace, I guess, then it would make sense that she would want to keep Elaine alive because Elaine was like, hey, your husband's probably cheating on you with the nanny, unless the whole point of wanting Elaine dead was to frame Mary so that Mary would not be able to see Grace. But then she ends up killing Tom instead. So I'm not fully understanding what the goal was there because, hey, if Margaret just wants to get whatever she wants, if she wants Tom, then Mary being in jail or even killing Mary would make more sense because killing Tom, framing Mary maybe for killing Tom, that would work. But I mean, we're never shown that that was like the goal was like framing Mary with killing Tom. If anything, it would frame Grace, and Grace would probably go to jail over Mary if Tom had died before Mary had gotten there. So overall, I'm done. I'm overthinking this movie way too much. Overall, I wanted to like Deadly Illusions. I really did. For the most part, it's not a bad movie. Just don't think about the ending too much or the twist because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not a horrible movie. It's just don't think about it too hard. And that's gonna be it. Did you watch Deadly Illusions? What's a Netflix original movie that you liked? What's another Netflix original movie you would like to hear me talk about? And let me know, comment down below. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd also like to support me on Patreon, that'll be listed down below. If you'd like to follow me on my social media, that'll be all up here. And that's gonna be it. Have a lovely day. Goodbye. Anyway, I think Mary is the killer. Thank you, Elaine, Allie, Alan, Elise, Alex, Brayden, Cameron, Christopher, Chris, Cody, Colton, Crash, PC, Destiny, Devin, Dirty One, Don, Elliot, S, and Evan, Feckles, Hope is Hollow, Jack Ray, Jakers, Joe, John M, Jordan, Joseph, Kenny, Kevin, Kim, Kristen, Lex, Lisa, Louise, Manga, Matt, O, Matthew S, Bemoy the Red, Michael, Micah J, Nathaniel, Pat, Pal, Rob, Robbie, Robert, Ross, Sam, Simon, Stephen, Tasha, Timothy, Tom, Tyrone, Wayne, Wendy, Williams, Ender.